The events of Sarkaz Furnacite Fables takes place right after the events of a Kazdelian rescue. You can watch this video if you want to know more about the story, but here's a quick recap. Elder Revenant gets mad, Furnace Gabble, Nymph collects some Revenant fragments after the Gabble. This group of Sarkaz write about their imagination of Kazdel's future, Revenants in the Furnace are happy, and here we are. But before I start, I need to say, Ending 3's endbook is way too confusing and vague. I had to look up Reddit and some Chinese forums and combine them with my speculation just to bring an approximate explanation. So I'm sorry for any inconsistencies within my hypotheses. Also, non-canon endings in IS5 will be treated as parallel universes instead of what-if timelines. So there's that. And yeah, let's hop right in. This ending is the only canon ending in IS5, with the combination of the storyteller's imagination and the Revenant's arts. The stories told by the storytellers continue to expand and gradually spiral out of their control until they can no longer distinguish reality and fiction. Eventually, they could no longer continue the story. Perhaps the Revenants are a bit impatient to hear the next one, or perhaps the squad broke the limits of the Revenant's arts. The furnace is no longer stable, and they nearly got burnt alive. Suddenly, Fremont comes in to wake up the storytellers and bring them back to reality. Although the appeasement ritual was a success thanks to them, Fremont is extremely pissed at Ermi's actions and heavily scolds her, before kicking everyone out of the furnace. However, all the storytellers had contracted a furnace syndrome after leaving the furnace. They are very energetic and have trouble differentiating reality and hallucinations. Among them, Crowny and Nymph have the worst symptoms. Both of them are obsessed with the Kazdel from their stories, to the point that they want nothing more but to go there. Things aren't looking too good in the furnace either. The Revenants in it keep demanding Fremont to bring the storytellers back to the furnace for more storytelling. They even threaten to stop working in the furnace. Kazdel is obviously not going to survive the winter without the furnace's energy, so Fremont was compelled to bring the storytellers back into the furnace one last time, thus giving birth to endings 2, 3, and later on 4 and 5 in expansion 1 and 2, but we'll get to them later on. After the storytellers left, Tin Man sits beside the furnace to reminisce about the past while sharing some Colombian fast food with the Revenants. He then takes out 3 metal toys and asks if the Revenants want to live with him, not as a mass of consciousness, but individuals like him. A long time passed, and 3 Revenants possessed the metal bodies. Tin Man named them Old Curly, Big Larry, and Lil Mo. Tin Man brings the 3 of them back to Colombia and helps them register their Colombian citizenship. After a month, everyone's furnace syndromes have faded. Kal'tsit secretly leaves Kazdel, believing that she will find the secret to suppressing the Nabzera's racial traits in Sami. Before long, the furnace is finally revenated. The Revenants have left, and the workers replace the furnace power source with the first Originium, Amnanam. Crowny leaves Kazdel in order to apply as a designer at the sportswear brand she used to work for. Mudrock accommodated more infected into Kazdel, and even expanded the vertical farms to increase food production. With food sources stabilized, and more young people coming to Kazdel to work, Mitin finally leaves everything behind and prepares to move to a Kazdelian Rhodes Island branch office, along with Nymph joining Rhodes Island through the same office. Now that we have the canon ending out of the way, let's talk about the universes within the furnace. Ending 2's universe isn't much different from our main universe, other than Ursus joining Victoria, Gaul, and Lifanian in their crusade against Kazdel. However, when theresa and theresis approach Civila Eterna, instead of theresis crowning his sister, the Black Crown splits into 2, and each twin wears one half of it. After their coronation, the duo will go on to win the war against the 4-nation coalition and imprison kal'tsit beneath Babel. Speaking of Babel, the organization's goal is a bit different from our universe. Although Babel still seeks to unite all of Terra under a banner, they instead seek to eliminate war completely, be it through diplomatic or oppressive means. Somewhere around the 9th or 10th century marks the turning point for Babel and Terra. When a giant catastrophe storm hit Londinium, Babel relocated Victoria's palace and many of its nomadic city-states to Kazdel, saving countless Victorian lives. From then on, Babel slowly united all countries and races, eventually founding a federation 2 centuries after. Kazdel is flourishing in terms of economy, infrastructure, transport, education, and tourism. Racism is gone, as the soul furnace that once burned the revenants for energy is now renovated into a water channel after Kazdel was turned into a nomadic city. Sadly, the journey to creating this utopia did not come without sorrow and regret. Long before the Federation was founded, theresa and theresis were ambushed in Wimbledon and forced to separate. Within this time period, theresa saved an infected Amiya from a convoy crash. However, since there were assassins on her tail, theresa could only give Amiya some basic treatment while fighting and fleeing from them assassins. Theresis and Babel then managed to find Theresa and seek immediate medical treatment to save Amiya's life. However, Amiya's oropathy had worsened due to the delayed treatment. Babel doctors estimated that she could only survive for 5 more years. The kings then adopted and took attentive care of the girl. Miraculously, Amiya managed to live until she reached adulthood, but eventually left Babel and became a wandering medic due to ideological differences, as she did not approve Babel's pursuit of peace through bloodshed. Amiya would then wander around Terra and gradually form a medical squad, specializing in rescuing people in catastrophe and war-ravaged areas, until one day she will succumb to oropathy in somewhere unknown, dying in her 40s. The only things left behind by her were a medkit, a white robe, and a damaged ID card, all covered and torn apart by originium dust particles. The kings would then erect a statue of her in the memorial park, along with some other compatriots who sacrificed for Babel's cause. Some notable ones are Ascalon, Touch, Justin Fitzroy, and Erickson, the guy who wrote the lore book. Shifting to the present, Nymph and her friends were brought into this universe by the revenants. Theresa and Theresis initially faced them with hostility, as Civilite Interna listed as storytellers as anomalies. But after a trial, they realized that these people do not belong here and hold no ill intention. So, the kings welcomed them to explore their castle. But Nymph only managed to catch a glimpse of the city before the revenants stopped casting their arts, causing her to collapse. Before the twins could help her up, a white figure appears above Nymph's head and helps her up. It's Amiya. Amiya then exchanges memories and information about their world with Theresa and Theresis through Civilite Eterna. After Amiya left, the kings went to kal'tsit cells and probed her memory. Although kal'tsit had some mechanisms to confuse them, the twins managed to get Rhodes Island and the sarcophagus location using Amiya's memories as a guide. 4 months later, Babel found the wreckage of Rhodes Island and spent enormous manpower and time bypassing PRTS and its defense system, just so they could reach the person who could find a permanent cure for oropathy. You, the doctor, or should I say, the Oracle. Finally, they got into the sarcophagus and met with Oracle. Theresa shares all the information within Civilite Eterna to Oracle, but after a long period of silence, they asked a question no one could answer. Where is Priestess? Leaving us at a cliffhanger. I have a feeling that they might be done for. We have to wait until expansion 2 comes out to EN. Same goes for ending 3. Until then, let's move on to this story's diverging point happens before the ancients and elders even arrived at Terra, when Farchaser, the first king of Sarkaz, was banished into the Silver Mountains. Instead of finding Alanam and Civilite Interna, he found the law. This revelation did not just bless one T-Cast community. Every T-Cast gained Halo and Wings of a Sancta, as well as their empathetic powers and talent for firearms. The T-Cast then built the holy city of Kazdel, an utopia that welcomes all races equally, with automatons everywhere in the city. Think of it as a more advanced Laterano. However, not all T-Casts are willing to be blessed by the law, and the city's way of dealing with this is by forcing revelations onto them. This caused more resistance and protest among similar T-Casts, as well as non-T-Casts who've yet to receive the law's blessing. Eventually, this conflict escalated into violence. We then formed a resistant group known as the Strays, and now camp at the Originium clusters beside the holy city's gates, with kal'tsit leading them. Now, let's talk about Patriot or Patriot. He serves as a holy gun knight in the city, welcoming outsiders and patrolling the gates. His wife and son, Helen and Grovasil, are alive and well, although the latter had ideological differences with his father and joined the Astrays. Yelena, or Frostnova, is also alive as Patriot's adoptive daughter, but both have a hard time understanding each other cause they're different races. Let's go back to the present. After the storytellers found a horn within their story's Silver Mountains, they found a gun within a soul furnace and chose to fire it. Not long after, they witnessed the events related to Patriot and Frostnova rewind before diving deep into this story, to the point where Fremont and the Revenants couldn't pull them back to reality. Eventually, the storytellers arrive at the gates of the Holy City. Seeing that the sarkaz group isn't blessed by the law, Patriot tries to convert them into sanctas. Suddenly, kal'tsit appears and urges the storytellers to follow her, to which they do. While retreating, the Astrays suffer bombardment from the gun knights, splitting nymph from the storytellers. After reaching the guerrillas camp near some Originium clusters, the gun knights stop firing to avoid civilian casualties, as the clusters are too close to the city walls. After the conflict, Patriot starts to have doubts towards the city's motives, especially after a conversation with Frostnova. At the guerrillas camp, kal'tsit tells Nymph that the other storytellers have mysteriously disappeared during the conflict. Just then, Patriot arrives at the camp alone. After Lemuel confirms his intentions, Patriot delivers the Pope's request: bring Nymph to His Holiness. kal'tsit initially refuses, but agrees when Patriot promises to reassure Nymph's safety. Nothing is known about the conversation between the Pope and Nymph, but after the exchange, he seems to have gone mad, brutally cutting large quantities of Originium from the clusters himself before bringing them back inside the city. Realizing that something is off, Patriot secretly brings Nymph back to the guerrilla camps and informs kal'tsit about this abnormality. Realizing that this universe is failing, she and Patriot organize an operation to infiltrate the Holy City and wake up you, the Doctor, or should I say, the Oracle, repeatedly uttering a confusing sentence to Nymph. You are the only point not requiring self-reference. You will not lose yourself in the planes of decision, even if your appearance here means the lives we live are meaningless. With the help of Frostnova's ice arts, the guerrilla succeeds in entering the city. They head off to a secret passageway that leads to the sarcophagus, while Patriot parts ways to confront the Pope. He demands the Pope to stop this madness, as the latter is going against his own initial agenda. But the Pope insists that the law has corrected him after his meeting with Nymph, and said, in the initial design, decision access can only flow in one direction, but Originium, and only Originium, has the potential to break this restriction. Realizing that this madman has lost all reason, Patriot points his halberd towards the Holy City's enemy, and cliffhanger again. Okay, I tried reading Reddit and some Chinese forums and had multiple brain freeze trying to understand these two sentences. These might not be the best interpretations, but let's start this one. You are a point that does not require self-reference. You will not lose yourself in the planes of decision, even if your appearance here means that the lives we live are meaningless. I combined some of my speculation with a CN forum user's opinion and came up with this. Nymph essentially created this universe when she interfered with the events at the origins. She doesn't need to think of the consequences of her decisions in this universe, as all will return to normal when she returns to the furnace. This is all just a silly story gone astray. However, kal'tsit implied that this point could be referring to you, the Doctor, or should I say, Oracle? Because Oracle is a constant yet important person within all of the current universes we have. As long as the Doctor is here, they shall lead their allies to victory, no matter what it takes. Now, on to the second sentence. In the initial design, decision access can only flow in one direction, but Originium, and only Originium, has the potential to break this restriction. I might be wrong, but here's my hot take. No matter what decisions we make, they all lead to one end, getting f***ed by the same threat that wiped out the Doctor's civilization. But Originium can save us from extinction, just like how it is the predecessor's only hope of surviving the same crisis. However, a person from Reddit and another person from a CN forum also made a pretty good speculation on what this would mean. The Law, or Celestial Fulcrum, is a supercomputer that can calculate all possible decisions and make the best choice. These calculations would then branch into endless multiverses, with Originium as their backbone. But because Originium's potential wasn't realized by the people of Ending 3, the law instead listed it as a threat and could only calculate the possibilities within its own universe. Nymph's arrival here caused the law to discover that there are alternate universes where Originium is more of a double-edged sword, and deduced that Originium is the reason why she's here. So, it decided that spreading and experimenting on Originium will produce the best outcome from them. Then again, please take this with a grain of salt, and if you have something on your mind, comment down below. I don't mind. Anyways, I apologize for the late upload. School just reopened, and short semesters mean frantic teachers trying to cram 1 year's worth of syllabus in 6 months, which also means a lot of homework in short time frames. Plus, I'm trying to switch from CapCut to DaVinci Resolve. By the way, I gave up, I went back to CapCut, and... Okay, I admit I procrastinated for 2 months. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe I guess, and I'll see ya on the next one.